Welcome, everybody, to today's edition of the Kingdom and its Stories. We're delighted to have you with us today, and I'm delighted to have a friend of mine for many years, Pat White, who lives in Phoenix, Arizona, uh, in the Black community. Pat, it's just so fun to have you with us today. And I would just want to remind people that the people that we interview, including Pat, is not for the purpose of lifting them up, but using their story to help us explore how we personally can be better at being Jesus' hands and feet in our community. So, Pat White, it's wonderful to have you with us on the program today. And because people don't know you, give us the elevator speech, which means you've got 10 to 20 stories in a tall building to tell the story of who you are so people can just get an idea of who is Pat.
Oh, good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Bob. I am Pat. I am just me. I was born in the city of Detroit, Michigan, in the middle 50s. When I was 7, we moved to St. Louis, Missouri. My father's job and many other of my family members' jobs were transferred there. And my father decided to stay there, and the rest of my family moved back to Detroit. As I grew up in St. Louis, it was predominantly an all-black community. Not from where I started, it was a very diverse community, and so that was a challenge. And then, as I grew, my father, unfortunately, started on became an alcoholic and drug user, and so
Mm.
I grew up in a very abusive, physically and mentally, home. But however, because of God and His great, awesome love,
Mm.
I um, developed a relationship and gave my life to Christ at the age of 10.
Wow.
I received His Spirit at the age of 12 and continued my journey on uh, looking and trusting Jesus and being that a servant, keyword, a servant for Him.
Pat, when did you come to Phoenix?
I came to Phoenix in originally in 1995, left and came back in end of 1999
Okay.
to serve co-pastor to plant a church actually, and I served as a co-pastor with a local church in the community.
So I know you're really passionate about the community.
Yeah.
So how has that taken shape in your life?
Well, the Lord directed me. I was when I left that assignment I had in the West Valley, the Lord moved me to South Phoenix, where I purchased a home there to serve. It was strictly to serve God's people in
What
South.
do you mean you purchased a home to
Um,
serve?
um,
What does that mean?
that means that I followed the leading of God and moved into South Phoenix and to live permanently. And that was not my plan, but it was God's plan. So the doors just opened up for me. It just gave me a home, and I moved in. And the Lord told me that that is for me, not just for me, but to serve others in the community. So the house didn't really belong to me; it belonged to the people in the community.
So how do you serve people in the
And
community?
so one of the things I do is that I go to my different neighbors and I offer help where they need it. Some people are struggling with drug addiction, and so I supply food to them because a lot of them they are living on the street and living in their cars. And so I supply food, and let them know that, God has not forgotten them. I also talk to the
So,
children.
so Pat, how do you know about these people? Are they your neighbors, or you see
These are
a
my
car
neighbors.
parked on the street, or what?
These are my neighbors. These are my door-to-door neighbors that just have problems, and I just go to them.
You take they don't come to you. You take the initiative to go to them.
I go to them. I go to
Wow.
them.
So you bought a house to be a servant, and that doesn't mean you wait for people to come and ask you to help them. You move around and you see there's a need and you try to meet that need. Is that right?
That's correct. That is correct. To God be the glory. Yes.
Wow. It just seems like that's so countercultural to the way we tend to think. We move to an area because we we think that would be a good area for us,
Right.
and sort of selfishly. And I have to admit, when Judy and I moved to where we are, it was, we were trying to think of ourselves. Would this be a good place for us at this time in our life? Yes. Do we want to serve? Absolutely. But to move into a neighborhood specifically so that you can serve is is right, kind of a paradigm changer,
Yes.
for most of us in this culture. So, Pat, tell us some stories that will sort of illustrate what how that looks.
It looks like one particular lady I met at I was just actually I met her, I forgot where I met her at, but she was standing on the corner near our local, there's a community college in the area where I live, maybe 5 minutes from where I live. And I met her in doing one of my classes, but I didn't realize that she was struggling in a relationship with a man, and she didn't really know Christ. And she was just standing, she had packed all her bags and she was just standing on the street in front of the school, not knowing where to go, not knowing what to do. And the Lord just spoke to me and I called her. And I said, what's going on? She says, I'm just standing here. I said, standing where? She says, I'm in front of the school with my luggage, my bag, everything I own in one bag. And so I said, well, I have room here at my house. This is my purpose. I will
Mm.
come pick you up and I will bring you here. And that's what I did. I picked her up. She came. She lived with me for approximately a year or so. She completed her education and she gave her life to Christ.
That's it,
She's living in her own apartment and going on with her life.
it's amazing. You just saw her standing there,
Yeah,
and
she was just
and
standing. I
you went to her and said, "What's going on?"
right.
Yeah, and she didn't turn you away. She told you.
Yeah, she said because she didn't really know me that well. She says, "Well, I moved out of abusive relationship, and she didn't have anywhere to go. She just didn't have anywhere to go. She was at the bus stop. She didn't have anywhere to go." And I said, "Well, I have a place for you.
I have a room.
I have a room. God has not
Wow.
forgotten you, and come live with me." And she did. We packed her stuff up in my car, and we came to my house, and she was there for approximately in a year.
And I mean, you really had no idea what the consequences of, you didn't know her background.
No,
And
no, I
was
didn't.
it all, how did you know she was safe?
But the Lord told me, I just followed what the Lord told me to do. I just followed what he
You
said.
didn't know she was safe.
I did not. And then I
Yeah.
found out later that she was dealing with some mental challenges and she could be physically violent, But I didn't find all that out until much later after she was living with me approximately 6 months. I guess, and that's when I found out. And so I encouraged her to go back into treatment, and she did. She did, and like I said, she continued on with me for about, I guess, a year and a half or so, maybe, and then she moved out, moved into another apartment, and she gave her life to Christ during this time she was living with me. And matter of
Yeah,
fact, she started taking classes, uh, this, um, with us during that time at our church. The
I want to
Seminary
remind
Baptist class.
people who
Yes.
are listening that you're listening to The Kingdom and Its Stories. And in this podcast, we interview people to find out how their story can influence us to think more clearly about how Jesus could use us in our context to be his hands and feet. And today we have a friend of mine, Pat White, who I've known for a number of years, um, who is our guest on this program today. And Pat is sharing her story. And I just love the spontaneity, Pat, of moving into a neighborhood with the purpose of being able to be a servant. And they're just allowing God to use the encounters, the serendipitous encounters, that we might have of like this lady that you just told us about, who was standing on the street. You went to her, asked her what's going on, and she eventually came to stay with you for a year and a half in a vacant room that you happen to have. And in the process, she met Jesus.
Yes.
Pat, that's a wonderful story. Tell us another one.
Well, my I've really been trying to work with the young people in our neighborhood. Now, I deal only with people in the neighborhood. I just deal with the everyday people in the neighborhood. They come and go. And I have a new neighbor. They're young, very young, under 40. And
Under what? Under
under
40.
40 years of age. Very
Okay.
young, way younger than I. And so I was just praying about how I can connect with them. And so I just went over and knocked on the door, introduced myself and said, you know what, how are you? So forth, so forth. And I said, you know what? I get so many different items people from different people that call me and say, Pat, I got this, I got that. Do you know anybody can use it? So I told her, I said, I get food, all types of food and clothes and stuff like that. Could you use it? And she says, yes, I really appreciate it. So I started just taking them food boxes that I could put together, things for her and her husband and her kids. And I start talking to them about, specifically her husband, about Christ and who God was, and that they could depend on Christ. At the end of the process, though, he took his life. He committed suicide,
Hmm.
but I had the opportunity, though, to tell him that God had not forgotten, that God is here and he will meet you where you are. And he said that he understood that and just asked me to continue to pray for him and his friend. But his wife uh, said that she was really starting to look to God because I talked to her and tried to encourage her, even though he's not with you and he left, you still have a family, but God would never leave you. And this is
Hmm.
the time to connect with God again, to build and establish a relationship with him because he wants that.
So are they still living next to
They're
you?
still they're still living there. Matter of fact, I just went there next door and told her I had some shoes for her children, and if she was interested, her daughter could have those. So she said thank you, and she didn't really realize, she's having a tough time, but I told her I'm here to walk alongside her.
And how long has this relationship been with
Well, they've
your
been here 3 years. They just
three
moved 3
years?
years. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Do you ever get discouraged, wondering, are these people um, going to come to Christ? Or,
You know what? I actually have to say I don't, because I know how God deals with me and how stubborn and disobedient I was. And so it's all in God's hands. My assignment is just to give them the word and to encourage them in any small way that I can. The rest I leave to them and God and pray that they will accept him. They will acknowledge him and that they will make that right choice. So
yeah.
I,
So
I, I love
what
God,
I'm
people.
what I'm hearing from you, Pat, is we don't do this because the results that we see. We do this because that's God's calling on our life.
Yes,
It's to be his hands and feet, irrespective of the results that we see. Is that
yes,
right?
yes, exactly. I was so hurt the young man took his life. I was so heartbroken, about that. But God knows more than we do, and we just depend truly solely on God's perfect will and judgment for our individual lives.
Amen. I just want to remind you as you're listening that you're listening to the Kingdom and its stories. And today we have the privilege of having Pat White with us, who I've known for a number of years from when we lived in Phoenix. And Pat is sharing some of her stories to help encourage us to more deeply examine how we might better be Jesus' hands and feet in our lives. So, Pat, tell us another story. You've told us these two stories, and one of the things that really impresses me with your story is that it's you don't do this because of the results that you see. You do it because you serve others because this is what God's call is on your life. And not only yours, but ours as well, if we choose to accept this mission impossible that
Yeah.
God gives all of us if we truly belong to Him. Tell us another story that will help us uh, understand what your journey has been in this area of being a servant in your community.
Um, One story that sometimes well, most of the times, I am a spontaneous person. I really don't pay attention to really what I'm doing and what's going on. But I was at school one class one day, and I went back to school as an older an adult. I was in my 50s, and I was around so many young people under the age of 20. And I was just so surprised at all the different things that they encounter. And I was sitting in the courtyard one day, and for some reason, all these young people just came around me and they just sat down at my feet because I was sitting in the courtyard. They just sat on the ground all around me, and they started asking me questions because I had just lost my eyes a great deal of my eyesight, over 60% of my eyesight. So I was just sitting there, and they just came, started talking and asking me, "Who are you? Why are you here? What is your purpose?" And I began to share with them the love of God and who God is and my purpose and what their purpose can be in that regard. And though I cannot see, it doesn't stop me from serving and loving and being available. And how can I help you?
Mm.
And they were they were just so amazing. They were so amazed. But the I was amazed the fact that they were so many of them were just gathering at my feet and wanting to asking questions. And I thank God that I was able to tell them, listen, God is real. It's real. He's real. And he loves you, each individual, and he wants to establish a relationship with you. Because a lot of these kids, some of these kids were Satan worshipers and just things I had never ever knew even existed. But he's even there in the dark places.
And this is a community college?
Yep. In my neighborhood, because I live like less than 3 miles from the community college.
Okay, and so you were taking a class at the community college. What class was it, by the way?
It was psychology.
Okay. And they saw you in the class.
They saw me sitting outside of the class.
Well, I mean, they'd known you from being in the class, right?
No, they didn't.
They
That's the
didn't.
view. They didn't know me from being in the class. No, I was after class. I was just sitting in the courtyard, and they just seemed to be in awe of the fact that here's this old lady in their minds sitting here, alone, and they just start gathering around me and just start asking me questions. So it was an
That's
opportunity for me to
amazing.
share about Jesus.
That's that's just so amazing. And what it says to me is that, you know what, Pat, they didn't see you. They saw Jesus.
Yes.
And Jesus is attractive. And they came to you. How many of them were there that came to you?
Oh, and that because it's a few of them. I'm gonna say about out of that particular class, maybe about 10 kids, 10 young people, because even the one of the older students I saw later on told me, he says, you don't realize how much you helped us, how much you helped us. And I'm like, what did I do? I didn't really do anything. I just shared information. I just shared. That's all I did.
Mm,
So at
wow.
different times, I'm sitting in the cafeteria, I'm sitting in a class, and the young people, they just walk up to me and start talking to me. They just start asking questions. And I just like, hey, Lord, here's an opportunity. Oh, I don't mind talking about Jesus. I don't mind
Praise
sharing the
the
love of
Lord.
God.
Wow. Pat, we have about a minute left
Oh,
in our time together. Tell us, what would you say to those people who are listening to encourage them to better be Jesus' hands and feet in their lives, in their context?
I would say just be free to just talk to anybody. Doesn't matter who it is, just be available. Just small things. Just be available. Just be available to allow God to use you in whatever capacity that may be. It's not necessarily something that you may think big, but just shaking somebody's hand, just giving them a smile, you know, just small things. Um, those things draw people. Just being available.
Just
Yeah.
being
Just to be
available.
available.
And sometimes taking the initiative, like you did with that girl on the street, standing there wondering what she was going to do, where she was going to go.
Yep.
Pat White, thank you so much for being with us today. God has used you today in my life to encourage me to just be more available. God bless you, Pat.
Thank you for the opportunity and the honor and my privilege.